The New York Mets had their winning streak snapped, and things are getting real ugly for Brett Baty.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Tough game for the New York Mets. They were hoping to complete a perfect homestand, sweeping both the Blue Jays and the Marlins. Just did not go their way today. Meyer was awesome for the Marlins. He was really tough to hit. And the Mets lineup just never woke up the entire game. Meanwhile, Brett Baty has hit a new low as the Marlins, I would say, one rally, but then there was an Edwin Diaz blow-up we're going to talk about in a second. But for the first 8 innings of the game, their one rally was a result of a poor play by Brett Baty. Let me get you there first, though. Tylor Megill opened up the game, did not have his best stuff, but fought through it the entire game. He walked the first 2 batters that he faced, looked ugly. Jeremy Hefner goes out there to talk to him. I doubt that Tylor Megill even heard whatever Jeremy Hefner told him. I saw a lot of people on social media being like, man, what did Hefner do to get him right? To me, I think 2 things got Megill right. One, taking that step off the mound, collecting himself, but also early in the game, it felt like he just didn't know how to locate his pitches against left-handed batters, walks those first 2 lefties. I think seeing a righty really helped him focus in, but that focus was pretty impressive because he works around the 2 walks and a base hit in that first inning, strikes out 3 to get out of that inning unscathed, worked around a walk and a single in the second inning, both of them coming with 2 outs, but got a strikeout to get out of it. Same story in the third inning as far as getting 2 outs and then giving up a hit. But that time, no walk. He ends up just getting a strikeout after the base hit allowed to get out of the third. Fourth inning, gets the first 2 outs. You've heard this story before. Gives up a base hit, but then a line out right to Mark Vientos to get out of the inning. He was at 81 pitches through 4 innings because he just could not get the final out. I was surprised that Carlos Mendoza sent him back out for the 5th inning in a scoreless game when you had Max Kranick ready to go. But with that said, even though Megill gave up a base hit to lead off that 5th, he got a double play ball. And this is where Brett Baty comes in. Brett Baty makes a nice play going to his left, spins around, goes to make the throw to Francisco Lindor, and he just smoked it, just threw it way past him. And everyone's safe on the play. Of course, the baseball gods are not going to let that one go. Next batter comes up, gets a base hit. That ends the day for Megill. Max Kranick comes on, nearly gets him out of the jam, strikeout, fly out, but then a bloop single, and that plates a second run. So the final line for Tylor Megill, 4 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 runs, both of them unearned. So now his ERA, I think, is 0.63 to start the season. That's not bad. 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. I thought Megill threw the ball pretty well considering the fact that he clearly didn't have his best up, but I thought the fight that he showed, the ability to get those timely strikeouts when he needed them. Ultimately, I don't come out of this discouraged by Megill whatsoever, but that play by Brett Baty was brutal because all of a sudden you turn that double play and it's 2 outs in the 5th inning. Maybe Megill gets another out. Maybe the Mets now come up in a tie game and they're eventually able to push a run across. They never do. The bats in general are part of the issue, or the biggest part of the issue, but it's not like Brett Baty helped the Mets in that department either. So we're going to talk about Baty more in the next segment because this has gotten ugly for a guy that I really supported, guy that I had some confidence in going to the season that this might be the year. It doesn't look like the year for Brett Baty, and it looks like a guy that could be heading back to Syracuse in the not too distant future. But getting back to the specifics of this game, after Kranick got through that 5th inning for Megill, he pitched a perfect 6th inning. So Max Kranick still doing very well, gives up 1 hit. So now it's been 2 hits in 9 innings pitched, if I'm not mistaken, for Kranick. Just awesome stuff from him. Ryan Stanek, Huascar Braziban each worked a scoreless inning, but the Marlins got to Edwin Diaz, who just looked awful. Gave up a couple hits, a walk, allowed a 2-run homer. Needed Danny Young to bail him out of that 9th inning. So I guess if there was a time to have a meltdown blow-up outing, it would be when your team's already trailing 2-0 and probably weren't going to get anything going offensively anyway. But it was a bitter end to the game to see the Mets go from down 2-0, 2 runs that never should have been on the board, to all of a sudden Edwin Diaz has a rough outing and you lose 5-0. Again, not really much to talk about offensively for the New York Mets. Max Meyer held them hitless all the way up until the 6th inning when Lindor got a knock. Prior to that, Mark Vientos and Pete Alonso each drew walks. And then you had Lindor's hit that might have started something well. Guess what? No. Juan Soto promptly hits into a double play ball that erases Lindor. Pete Alonso led off the 7th inning with the base hit. Mets couldn't do anything with it. That's Max Meyer gets Nimmo to fly out, and that was the end of his day. So he goes 6 1/3, 2 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 82 pitches to get through 6 1/3. So that was really the story here. You had a good young starting pitcher on the Marlins who had a really nice day, really kept the Mets lineup at bay after they exploded for 10 runs yesterday. The Mets pitching overall was okay until Edwin Diaz. And then Baty, that play was just absolutely brutal. It's really tough to watch right now because the one thing you could say for Brett Baty up to this point was, hey, well, at least the defense has been okay. Not anymore. That was a rough one, and it just shows him carrying those frustrations with him out onto the field. And when he struck out for the second time of the day, he went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. Brett Baty was it a strikeout? That was his final at bat? Or was it a ground out? Either way, Baty was booed off the field. Doesn't really matter what the result was, but I want to talk about Brett Baty a little bit more in the next segment because it's getting to the point where I think he's becoming, and I can't believe I'm saying this, almost unplayable. I want to go through his struggles a little more in the next segment. First, though, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller longer. I love the no-shell varieties of Wonderful Pistachio. Honey roasted, one of my favorite flavors. I like smoky barbecue as well. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, Wonderful Pistachios has their in-shell options as well, which are a classic favorite. Get snacking and cracking with the snack that packs the protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. If you are watching on YouTube today for this live stream, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, help us get closer to our next goal of 13,000 subscribers. Let's talk about Brett Baty. Brett Baty, it's been brutal. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. And I hate to pile on the guy because, I think this is a mental thing for Brett Baty. I think he has a mental hurdle that he just has not been able to get over, and it's leading to him not playing up to his potential, because I still think there's a good player deep down buried inside Brett Baty. I'm sure when Jeff McNeil comes up and the Mets make the only decision they can at this point and option Brett Baty down to Syracuse, I'm sure he's going to have plenty of success going back down to AAA. And I don't even necessarily think he is just a classic 4A player. I think that what he brings to the table can work in the big leagues, but now I'm just thinking it's not with the Mets. And maybe I'm giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt that I even believe he can have success elsewhere. I don't know. What I do know is what he did in spring training was different than what he had done previously. And that's why I believe, because you can say, oh, he was great in spring trainings in the past. Let's go through the numbers again. 2023, when he nearly won a job in spring training, ends up going down to AAA to start the season, was red hot for the first 10 games or whatever it was, and then quickly got called up. That year, he did hit 325. in spring training. He did have a 460 on base percentage. He had an 885 OPS. He hit 1 home run, had 1 double across 40 at-bats. This year, he hit 353, 441 on base, 745 slug. He had 4 home runs, 6 doubles, and a triple. I mean, Brett Baty was playing great baseball not even a full month ago. And yes, are you facing as good of pitching then as you are now? No, but it's not like Brett Baty is getting absolutely nothing to hit. And I will say one of his strikeouts today, I mean, when things are going bad. Actually, I think it was the final strikeout because I remember thinking that was not his fault, but he struck out on a pitch that was a foot outside of the zone. That was in the 5th inning. And it should have been a ball. But at the same time, when you are struggling as much as he is, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt from the umpire or from the fans. And then, yes, his final at bat of the game, he grounded it out, hit the ball hard, but who cares? Just grounded it out. So, again, another offer. So far to start this season, Brett Baty is 3 for 27. So he's hitting 111. He's yet to draw a walk, and he has 11 strikeouts and 27 at-bats. It's brutal. And then you make that defensive misplay today that gets the team off to a bad note that doesn't completely cost them the game because, again, they didn't score, and Edwin Diaz eventually gives up 3 runs in the 9th inning. But that set, that gave the Marlins some momentum. That set the Mets back. If Brett Baty turns that double play, Tylor Megill gets out of the 5th inning, who knows? Maybe you carry that with you. Maybe Brett Baty, for turning a sick double play, maybe he carries that with him. Maybe Brett Baty goes up to bat in the 5th inning, and instead of getting called out on strikes, maybe he's aggressive on that fastball foot outside of the zone, and he goes with it and hits it down the left field line, hits a double, and something happens. But Brett Baty is at a point right now where you can just see it on his face. There is no confidence level in what he's doing, and I don't think that he can all of a sudden flip a switch and change that. The Mets are sitting in a situation right now where Jeff McNeil is going to start his rehab assignment any day now. He's getting live BP today in Port St. Lucie. We'll see if we get any update on that going into tomorrow. But, Jeff McNeil is eventually going to get into some games in Port St. Lucie. If he holds up well by next week, he could be starting a rehab assignment in Syracuse. Looks good against, some pitching there at the upper levels for a couple games, and he's checking out just when it comes to his health. The Mets are going to fast track him back a little bit because they need him. I mean, Jeff McNeil, say what you want about him, he's going to give you better at-bats than what you're getting from Brett Baty and Luisangel Acuna. And I don't necessarily think Acuna has looked outstanding, but he hasn't looked scared up there. He hasn't looked defeated mentally. He still has swagger. He still has confidence. And while I think for Luisangel Acuna's long-term development, if you're talking about Luisangel Acuna being the starting second baseman of the New York Mets, if you think that's his long-term upside, the best thing for Acuna would be to be playing every day in Syracuse right now because his approach is not quite ready yet for the big league level. At the same time, the Mets wanted to give opportunities to their young guys. And there is development that can still be done at the big leagues. And hopefully he still gets into some games even when Jeff McNeil comes back. So he does get some time. But the bottom line is, regardless of Acuna's development, even though I think Acuna stands to gain more in AAA than Brett Baty does, I think Baty goes down, hits, and it tells us nothing because the only thing he has left to prove is that he can actually do it in front of the bright lights at the big league level, and that's not going to happen. But despite the fact that one of these two guys needs AAA, I think, as far as getting him to a point where he can be a starting big league player, the other one needs to probably battle adversity at the big league level and clear some mental hurdles. But you can't let Baty do that when you're trying to win now. And when Jeff McNeil is going to come up, he should grab all the at-bats that Brett Baty's getting. And Luisangel Acuna is a much better complement to Brett Baty. To Jeff McNeil, because Acuna's right-handed. And so if you have a tough lefty on the mound, you can go to Acuna. You could still platoon those two guys if you wanted to, as we're already seeing. You're going to see more righties and lefties. So a platoon is, at least 2/3 of the time going to put Jeff McNeil in the starting lineup. And you have the positional flexibility to slide Jeff McNeil into the outfield if you need to, and to play Luisangel Acuna all over the infield. He can still be your backup shortstop. He can give you that pinch running threat off the bench. He's a great defender. Like, Luisangel Acuna is a better bench piece than Brett Baty. The only reason why I thought that Baty was going to win a roster spot over Acuna going into spring training is because I thought he would put up bigger and better numbers, and he did. And then I thought, all right, well, then they're going to give Baty a shot just because you got to see what you have. But now you've seen what you have for a couple weeks, and what you have is a guy that is not playing with any confidence. And I don't know how you get that confidence back. And you could say, well, maybe it is going down to Syracuse. But then I don't think, even if Brett Baty hit 400 over 50 more games in Syracuse, is he going to come back feeling good? I just don't know. I don't think he is. And ultimately, this could be the last we see of Brett Baty in a Mets uniform. I honestly believe that to be the case, because if he doesn't figure it out enough where he looks drastically different at the plate to the point that the Mets decide to have sort of an ill-fitting pairing of McNeil and Baty on the big league roster and send Acuna down, Baty goes down. If McNeil stays healthy, there might not be another opening throughout the season. You never know. And at some point, Ronny Mauricio is going to get his feet under him, and he might be an option in a couple months. And if the Mets are looking at two guys who are thriving at Syracuse and they need an infielder, are they going to go with the guy that's gotten 4 opportunities and continues to struggle with them? Or are they going to go with the lightning rod, switch hitting power threat that might actually be able to thrive and deliver under the bright lights? I think Mauricio, when he's healthy, is going to cut the line on Baty, or not even cut the line, but get in front of Baty in line for that next opportunity. And you never know, Acuna might figure it out. So I think the Mets are in a position now where Jeff McNeil is more integral than he's ever been. They need to get Jeff McNeil back. In the meantime, you have a series in Sacramento where you're playing in a bandbox, and that could allow these guys. Actually, here's what I would do. If I'm Carlos Mendoza, here's what I would do. I would give, assuming you're facing some righties, I would give Brett Baty one more series and really prove the theory that Brett Baty is a guy that suffers from the third deck effect, because you're playing in Sacramento and there's no third deck. You're playing in a minor league ballpark. So if it is all about the ballparks and it's all about the crowds, you're going somewhere where there's not going to be any crowds, and it's basically like a minor league game. So this can fit into the narrative. Maybe Brett Baty goes off in Sacramento and carries that momentum into Minnesota, and maybe he starts to hit. But right now, with what we're seeing on the field, the body language is terrible. The fact that he made a bad, and honestly, that's a tough play for a new second baseman. Maybe I am overstating that this was him carrying his struggles, at the plate into the field. It might not have been. It was a tough play for a guy that's new to the position to field the ball to his left, spin around, and make that throw. When does he ever do that at third base? He doesn't, because if he was ever spinning around and making a throw, it would be into the stands. That's not how it works. So that's a new play for Brett Baty, and it would have been a great one. But Luisangel Acuna makes that play. That's the difference. And even if it wasn't about carrying the struggles into the field, I'm sure he certainly carried that error into the boxes next time he stepped in, because it's just overall feeling bad. And then you get booed off the field to end the homestand. And I don't blame Mets fans. Not that I would necessarily boo, but I don't blame Mets fans for airing out their frustrations on a guy who just had a brutal series and just has had a brutal start to the season. If nothing else, the Mets are a better team right now when Acuna's in there, because he's going to give them a better glove. And we still aren't entirely sure what he can be offensively. He hasn't had as many opportunities to succeed or fail. So maybe this is the time to just roll out Acuna until Jeff McNeil comes, and then you make the move on Baty. Maybe because you're playing in a minor league ballpark, you give Baty one more series. But this has been as bad of a start to the season as Brett Baty could have possibly had. And I hate to see it, because I'm rooting for the guy. But at this point in time, it's not looking good for him to stick with the team in a couple weeks when McNeil comes back. And long term, it feels like he has run out of opportunities, and he might just be a guy that is a really nice sweetener in a trade. I don't think that he's going to get you the piece at the deadline, certainly not. But if you have a couple prospects going back that are blue chippers, maybe you can send Brett Baty to a rebuilding team that's willing to take a flyer as a sweetener instead of throwing in an additional prospect. I feel like that's where we're at in the Brett Baty experience. Hopefully, this is just a horrible start, and this guy, in the next week or week and a half that he might have until Jeff McNeil comes back, he finds a way with the off day and heading to Sacramento to change it, to flip the switch mentally, and starts to showcase what we saw in spring training, which is a guy that was able to control his at-bats and drive the baseball. But right now, I don't think anyone is banking on that. So that's going to be all for this live stream after the game today. Chris Schubert was not available to do the post catch. For those of you who aren't familiar with the differences, just to give you a little update again on it, Chris goes live after every single game today. He had his job going on, so he couldn't do it with the day game, but he's going to go live after all these games. When he's not available, I'll hop on like I did today. And the difference between the two shows, so you guys always know who's hosting. If Chris is hosting, it's going to say postcast in the title. It's going to be the different images on the thumbnail. If it's me hosting, you won't get the postcast in the title, and that's also going to hold true on your podcast feeds as well when this hits there. As always, thank you for listening. On tomorrow's show, I think I'm going to update my bold predictions. I think that's going to be a lot of fun after getting a 12-game sample size to now make better bold predictions. So I think that'll be a kind of fun way to recap what we've seen and sort of project what's coming in the future here. But as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, go to subtext.com/Locked On Mets. And make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, which is streaming 24/7 on YouTube, keeping you up to date on all the latest in the world of sports.